Cette expérience avec David Michalek représente pour moi une étape importante dans l'histoire du laboratoire. D'une certaine manière, elle nous ramène aux origines du dialogue entre les artistes et les scientifiques et à la question de qui sommes-nous et l'étude obsessive de notre corps. David a fait ses études à Los Angeles et sous l'égide de Peter Sellers, très connu dans le monde de l'opéra et le monde d'art en général aux États-Unis. Et un jeune photographe très accompli, il est devenu fasciné par la performance et particulièrement inspiré par Bill Viola qu'il a rencontré à Los Angeles.
I mean, what I have been very essentially is a portrait artist, and one that uses a camera traditionally. But I think so much of what has impacted my life and my work has been being married to a dancer. And I'm not a dancer, I'm not a dance artist. But I've been immersed in the world of dance for now 15 years. And I've become fascinated by it, and I'm in love with what dancers do and sort of who they are.
Pendant les années 90 et 2000, à New York, David a fait une expérience surprenante. Sa femme est probablement parmi, sinon la plus célèbre danseuse aux États-Unis. Et une fois, ils se sont trouvés dans leur salon et David a décidé de filmer Wendy en train de danser. Et ils ont décidé de ralentir le film pour voir s'il y avait quelque chose de surprenant à voir. Wendy était plutôt horrifiée par ce qu'elle a vu, mais l'intuition de David l'a amené à chercher une technologie qui franchement n'existait pas à l'époque.
I wondered if there was some way that I could take the sort of the technology of high-speed photography, which is traditionally used to analyze things, analyze car crashes, analyze ballistics, things that move very quickly, things that we can't see with our human eye. And if there was some way to turn that technology on the things that a dancer does, dancing, and maybe show us a little something about dancing that we don't know or that we haven't seen.
Mais il y avait une recherche pas loin de Manhattan, financée par les militaires. Ils essayaient de créer des films avec une lenteur jamais vue jusqu'à cette époque-là. Et David, avec la magie de sa femme, a réussi à séduire les chercheurs pour qu'ils prêtent la technologie.
Would eventually become connected to a high-speed camera company in Wayne, New Jersey called Vision Research that was really developing a very sophisticated high-definition tool for on contract for the U.S. Army. I would get my hands on it in 2006 and eventually make the project that is slow dancing.
Il a filmé Wendy et puis plusieurs danseurs de New York City Ballet en train de danser et à une lenteur de 3000 images par seconde. il a projeté ces images sur la façade du Lincoln Center à New York et le spectacle a vraiment étonné la ville de New York, quoi. Donc, c'était impossible de passer devant Lincoln Center sans être hypnotisé par ces mots. C'était ni la photographie, ni le film, mais quelque chose entre les deux. Et il y avait une beauté jamais vue, en fait, dans ces projections.
Slow dancing was, in its initial, at the premiere of that work, I had shot 45 dancers, and now the archive has grown. The project, Slow Dancing, has now been seen very oftentimes as a work of public art in 22 cities. And so it became interesting for me to begin to explore the possibility for representing, for recording human beings that were not just dancers. People would say to me, there's something easy about slow dancing, that it is so gorgeous. The people in these images are so beautiful. They're so attractive. And the colors that they're wearing are bright and they flow. And just what's not to love? And to some degree that's true. And surely I don't have a problem with that. But I did begin to wonder, what would a project look like that that showed more pedestrian movement and more natural movement, and even also got rid of those beautiful flowing fabric that we had, and just what would that look like? And I really started to look back to the work of Edward Muybridge. And so that's kind of how figure studies came about. People thinking about Muybridge in scientific terms and thinking about Murray in artistic terms. But really actually what's going on is that, Muybridge had no sense of scientific purpose whatsoever. There's nothing about the scientific method in his work at all. Muybridge might have something scientific-y in his work, and surely that kind of, grid that we so often see behind his subjects is somehow suggestive to us of something that is purposeful in terms of analysis, but not really. Muybridge was an artist, and that body of work really is more a testimony to, his own inner life. And whereas Murray was exactly the opposite. Actually, Murray was not making work for aesthetic purposes at all. He was making work to learn something about the body and its functions. It was disinterested, it was systematic, analytical, and he was a physiologist and not an artist. So actually those two bodies of work, much as they seem alike, are actually very different. I am much more in the spirit of working in the spirit of Muybridge. There's nothing scientific about this work. Perhaps there's something scientific-y about it, but not really truly scientific. However, you know, it did occur to me that if I was to collaborate with or gain some insight into how a real scientist looks at human movement and biomechanics, it could inform and give some other layers and some other depth to the work.
Et il y a un an, elle a rencontré un scientifique à Harvard. Et donc c'était le contexte de notre dialogue et Dan Lieberman, qui est à la fois biologiste et médecin, est fasciné lui-même par le corps et aussi par le travail de David, a poussé David à filmer des athlètes, des hommes, des femmes, des jeunes, des vieux, nous en train de faire des mouvements très basiques, en disant que, en fait, l'histoire de l'humanité est plutôt définie par quelques mouvements assez basiques sans lesquels on ne serait pas là, quoi.
You know, I started visiting him. I went to his lab, and you know, we didn't spend a lot of time together, but we spent some important time together, and he, you know, just started to break down how, if he were me, he might approach it. You know, for example, he said, I think, you know, I would probably think about creating discrete movement categories. You know, throwing, running, jumping, walking, lifting, carrying. Really basic categories, things that we just have done throughout all of human history and that really define us.
Pour des raisons liées à l'avancée technologique, scientifique, etc., depuis un siècle, ces mouvements sont de moins en moins nécessaires. On les oublie un peu, on ne regarde plus nos corps et il y a des conséquences sûrement. Une des conséquences, c'est que la science qui avance évidemment rapidement dans un contexte moléculaire et cellulaire, n'arrive pas à comprendre certains mouvements fondamentaux, comme par exemple comment le pied humain bouge et distribue le poids en passant sur le sable, ou comment la tête arrive à balancer sur la tête. Donc, quelques questions assez basiques, on ne comprend pas vraiment comment ça marche.
Also, very important to the project was a collaboration with a woman who is also on the faculty at Harvard, who is named Jill Johnson. And Jill is a great dance artist who danced famously with Bill Forsyth's Frankfurt Ballet. She's worked with Ohad Naharin, Batsheva Dance Company in Israel. She both is a dancer as well as a stager of dances, and a teacher of dance technique and language, particularly Forsyth's technique. And so what Jill and I did was we both spent time around Dan. And, you know, she and I began to kind of notate some of these things that Dan was suggesting. And we continued to sort of crystallize and codify his suggestions into very clear and distinct movement sequences. And that would become one substantial body of reference for us. But I also wanted to, look at a kind of dancing that really evolved in, New York City in the 60s. Now loosely postmodern dance. But a group of people that were beginning to ask questions about really what is a dance. And people like Steve Paxton and Trisha Brown and Yvonne Rainer. And in challenging those notions of what is a dance, they began to turn to, and look at things that we all do. Walking, sitting, lifting, throwing, etc. They got rid of music. They started to ask questions about mise en scène, about what is a dance? Do we need a theater? Do we need music? Do we need even gestures that look like dancing? And that produced some really remarkable work. Oftentimes a crystallization of things that we do every day, but maybe seen just a little differently. And so Jill and I really turned to that body of work that was beginning to be produced in the 60s, and which, when married to that bit of work that the research that we did with Dan really started to give us a very rich sort of bed of resources for our project. So then what we did was we took all of these ideas and we began to marry and mingle them with things that we were also discovering on our own in the process of, meeting the people that would become the subjects, getting their ideas, as well as doing kind of general improvisatory work with them in rehearsal. So just trying to see how, I might ask an elderly couple, do you have any movement background, past or present? The husband of which might say, well, I play golf. And the wife of which might say, oh, and we used to dance a lot when we were younger. And I'd say, well, what kind of dancing did you do? And they'd say, oh, jitterbug. I say, do you do jitterbug anymore? And then I remember the husband saying, no, we used to do that at weddings, and now we're going to funerals. I said, can you show me what jitterbug looks like? I'm not sure I know it. And so then the couple would stand up and they'd do jitterbug. Or actually, I watched them try to relearn jitterbug. And so in that case, I might have said, well, promise me that you're not going to practice between now and the time that we actually film. Because what I really want to see are not two people who are expert at jitterbug, but who are trying to relearn jitterbug from memory. And so it was that kind of anecdotal work, and also, again, that body of work that Jill and I had amassed as reference with Dan, a look at postmodern dance. And we kind of just started to, in every case, try to fit the movement onto the subject in such a way that it felt like a glove, that it felt like the thing that they should be doing. And it's, you know, justice is, it has very specific meanings, actually, as they used the word, and sort of particularly Brecht, and tried to put it into practice as, but it's really, you know, sort of generally about a movement that's kind of individuated, or movement that's not decorated so much, that's not stylized, but that is also not natural. It's hard because I do love, I do love decorated movement, and it's and it's just a sort of a personal tick. You know, I had to push myself to allow and even to facilitate moments where that movement could be nothing more than just the thing itself, just someone picking up a book and putting it on a desk. It was tough for me. It would be easier for some people, and it was tough for me. And I might have wanted to see even more of that. And I think as I continue to develop and shape the project, I'll trust in that a bit more, even. You know, that, and this is not finished for me, this work. You know, I as I said, I did work to, as much as I was able, given my limited time and resources, to amass a fairly broad group of people. But it's not broad enough for my tastes. And I think what is ultimately going to give the work the depth that I'm really looking for is to shoot in some other cities and countries. And again, to really, perhaps even more than I already have, to trust in those certain movements which I might think of on the surface as being bland, but to really trust in the blandness of those very simple things, and to remove systematically and to a greater and greater degree that aspect of decoration. Because there is a certain kind of poetry in that blandness, and it's a really valuable one.
Cet exposé à la fois surprenant, hypnotisant et je trouve personnellement humanisant.